Nazareth was so small and insignificant that people openly sneered at the very mention of its name, asking with barely concealed contempt, "Can anything good come from there?" It was a village that no Roman mapmaker bothered to record, a place so forgotten by the wider world that its very obscurity seemed like an insult. Yet, hidden inside its dusty, winding streets, behind a low wooden gate and beneath the shade of an ancient olive tree, stood a modest courtyard home where a teenage boy learned to shape wood and stone with his own hands. That boy was Jesus of Nazareth. Today, we step across the threshold and into the house where he grew up, and we discover that the greatest story ever told began not in a palace, not in a temple, but in the quiet, ordinary life of a working family in a forgotten village. Imagine the year is roughly 10 AD. The Roman Empire stretches its iron grip across the entire known world, from the cold shores of Britain to the burning sands of Egypt. But in this tiny Galilean village of perhaps 400 souls, life moves to a much older rhythm, the rhythm of prayer, of labor, of harvest, and of rest. Nazareth clings to a limestone hillside in the heart of Lower Galilee. Its streets are narrow enough that two men carrying loads can barely pass each other. Its houses are simple, thick-walled against the summer heat and winter wind. Its people are hard-working farmers and craftsmen who rise with the sun and fall asleep exhausted beneath the stars. No one here expects the Messiah to appear. No palaces line the ridges above the village. No scholars debate theology in grand colonnaded halls. Just the silver shimmer of olive trees on terraced hillsides, the distant lowing of oxen, and the low, flat-roofed homes of ordinary Jewish families who have lived on this land for generations. Archaeology has given us an extraordinary and irreplaceable window into one of those homes. Beneath what is now the Sisters of Nazareth convent, patient excavators have uncovered a first-century courtyard house carved partly from the very living rock of the hillside. The walls, the cistern, the carved niches, all of it speaks of a family of modest but honest means. Scholars carefully note that it is exactly the kind of dwelling a craftsman's family would have occupied in Jesus' time. Though we cannot claim with absolute certainty that these are the precise walls that sheltered the Holy Family, the house matches the period, the location, and even the early Christian tradition that venerated this exact spot as the early childhood home of Jesus. Pilgrims were already visiting and honoring this site within a few generations of the resurrection. So let us walk through its ancient doorway together and discover what daily life was truly and deeply like for the boy the Gospels call the carpenter's son. You duck your head beneath the low lintel. Doorways were deliberately built this way to keep the precious warmth inside during winter and to make uninvited strangers think twice before entering. Inside, the main living space opens onto a small, sunlit courtyard. The walls are a beautiful mixture of rough-hewn limestone blocks and sections cut straight from the living bedrock of the hillside, so that the house itself seems to grow organically out of the earth. The floor beneath your feet is packed earth, smoothed flat by years of daily use, or in places simple stone slabs fitted together with care. A few woven mats lie rolled neatly against the wall, waiting to be spread out for sleeping when night falls. In one corner stands a small clay oven, its smoke-blackened interior mouth still radiating warmth from the morning bread baked before sunrise. A stone cistern, carved with great effort deep into the solid rock, holds the family's precious store of rainwater, the lifeblood of the household through the long, dry months of summer. This is home for Joseph, Mary, Jesus, and his younger brothers and sisters. The Gospels mention 4 brothers by name, James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas, and speak of sisters as well, though they are not named. In a village this size, where every family knows every other family going back 3 and 4 generations, privacy is almost completely unknown. Life spills constantly out of the house into the shared courtyard, where animals are kept safe at night, where ground is ground each morning, where children play in the dust and argue and make up and play again. The walls between neighbors are thin. The ties between families run deep. Dawn has barely broken. The sky is still a deep bruised purple over the hills of Galilee when the household stirs to life. Joseph rises first as the head of the family. In the dim light before the oil lamp is lit, he murmurs the ancient words of the Shema, words that every Jewish man recites upon waking as naturally as breathing. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Mary rises and joins him, her voice a quiet harmony to his. Then the children, rubbing sleep from their eyes, add their own small voices to the ancient prayer. Even as a boy no older than 7 or 8 years old, Jesus would have learned these words by heart, would have known their weight and their beauty. In this home, prayer is not something reserved for the synagogue on the Sabbath. It is the very air they breathe, the ground they walk on, the beginning and the end of every single day. Breakfast is simple and deeply satisfying in its simplicity. Barley bread baked fresh the evening before, its crust still faintly crisp, torn by hand and shared between everyone. A small clay bowl of olives, slightly bitter and glistening with their own oil. Perhaps some dried goat cheese, sharp and white, or a handful of dried figs sticky with concentrated sweetness. Water drawn cool and clear from the stone cistern. There is no coffee to shake the morning fog from weary eyes, no sugar to sweeten the start of the day, no elaborate feast spread on an embroidered tablecloth. Just the plain, honest sustenance of working people who know the value of what they have because they have worked hard for every bit of it. The family eats together, sitting cross-legged on the mat-covered floor or on low wooden stools that Joseph himself has made, talking quietly and companionably about the day that lies ahead. The text of Scripture stresses strongly that Jesus grew up in complete and willing obedience to his parents during these long hidden years. Luke, who investigated everything carefully, tells us simply and beautifully that he was submissive to them and that he increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. Those quiet years of invisible growth happened right here, in this house, around this very table, beside this very oven. The Son of God was learning what it means to be human, to be hungry and satisfied, to be tired and rested, to be loved and to love in return. After the morning meal, Joseph and Jesus head together to the workshop area in the courtyard, or perhaps to a small attached room whose stone walls still carry the faint, ghostly marks of iron tools. The Greek word the Gospels use to describe Joseph's trade is tekton, a craftsman or builder, a word far broader and richer than our modern narrow idea of a carpenter who works only with wood. In Galilee, where good, strong timber was scarce and expensive, but limestone was everywhere underfoot, a tekton like Joseph made doors and their wooden frames, heavy roof beams, plowing yokes for oxen shaped to rest easy on their necks, simple, sturdy tables and benches. And he also helped with basic construction work, setting foundation stones, laying floors, fitting lintels. Some historians and archaeologists believe that Joseph and the young Jesus may have walked together the few short miles to Sepphoris, the nearby city that Herod Antipas was ambitiously rebuilding into a fine Hellenistic urban center. There, they could have found steady and well-paid work shaping and dressing stones or framing the upper floors of new houses for wealthy residents of the growing city. Whether they worked quietly in the village or on larger, more demanding projects in the nearby city, father and son worked side by side in the steady rhythm of physical labor from the cool of early morning until the heat of the afternoon forced a pause in the day. Their tools are simple but effective and well-maintained, for a craftsman's tools are his livelihood, and he cares for them accordingly. An iron adze for shaping and smoothing heavy beams, a wooden mallet worn smooth with years of use, sharp iron chisels of various sizes, a pull saw whose teeth have been set and reset many times, measuring cords stretched taut between 2 points, their knots marking off equal lengths. The sounds of this workshop, The steady ring of hammer on chisel, the rasping whisper of the saw, the satisfying thud of the adze, and it smells. Fresh cut wood releasing its sweet resin, fresh stone dust hanging white in a shaft of morning light, fill the courtyard air from early morning onward. Jesus learns the trade not from books or from a teacher's lecture, but from his Father's patient hands. How to choose the straightest grain in a piece of timber, how to make a yoke that balances perfectly and rests easy on an animal's neck without chafing, how to fit stones so closely and tightly together that no mortar is needed between them, the stones holding each other by their own weight and precision. Later, when he stands before great crowds and tells them, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light," those deceptively simple words carry within them the deep muscle memory of real yokes he once lifted and shaped and smoothed with sandpaper and oil until they were exactly right. While the men work in the courtyard, Mary tends to the countless tasks of the household with tireless and cheerful competence. She kneels at the heavy saddle-shaped millstone each morning and grinds grain, the rhythmic back and forth motion of the upper stone over the lower, the grain crackling and releasing its floury dust, until she has enough flour for the day's bread. She stokes the outdoor clay oven and shapes the flat rounds of dough with practiced hands, placing them against the oven's hot inner wall to bake quickly. She draws water from the cistern and carries it on her head in a clay jar. She washes clothing at the stone basin, scrubbing with sharp natron and wringing the cloth dry in strong hands. She works at a simple wooden loom, the rhythmic thump of the heddle a constant background sound of the household, weaving cloth for the family's garments. The younger children help with the smaller tasks, fetching fresh water, gathering dry wood for the fire, carrying messages to a neighbor. Life is communal and constant and full. There is no concept of a weekend or a holiday except the blessed rest of the Sabbath. Every day brings the same honest labor that has sustained Jewish families on this land for centuries beyond counting. By midday, the family gathers again in the shade for the main meal of the day. Perhaps a thick lentil stew enriched with onions, garlic, and dried herbs from the kitchen garden. The kind of stew whose fragrance drifts down the narrow street and makes the neighbors' mouths water. More flat bread pulled apart and used to scoop the stew. Whatever vegetables are in season. Early spring brings young greens and leeks. Summer, cucumbers and figs. Autumn, pomegranates and dried grapes. They eat in the deep shade of the courtyard wall, resting gratefully from the white sun that beats down on the limestone hills and turns them almost too bright to look at. Conversation turns naturally to village news. Whose sheep broke into whose barley field, what the Roman tax collector said when he came through last week, whether the well on the north side of the village needs repairing again. And Joseph, his hands resting on his knees, recites from memory a verse or a passage from the Torah that has been turning in his mind all morning. Jesus listens with an attention that goes far beyond mere polite interest. The boy who will one day stand in the Jerusalem temple at 12 years old and astonish the most learned teachers in all Israel with his understanding and his questions is already in this dusty courtyard, storing up wisdom like a cistern storing rainwater, carefully, patiently, drop by precious drop. Afternoon brings a renewal of work as the worst heat of the day passes and the shadows begin their slow eastward lean. Joseph and Jesus might spend the afternoon repairing a neighbor's sagging doorframe, carefully measuring and cutting a new threshold piece. They might deliver a finished plow to a farmer at the edge of the village and stay a few minutes to watch him test it in the dry soil. They might carry a pair of freshly made yokes on their shoulders to the small market area where the village road meets the main road to sell to passing travelers or to merchants from Sepphoris. In the evening, they return home together, footsteps slow with honest tiredness, dust on their sandals and their clothes and in their hair. Mary has already lit the clay oil lamp, It casts a warm orange circle of light in the growing dusk, and the smell of the evening meal drifts out through the low doorway to meet them. The family eats a lighter supper as the stars emerge one by one over the Galilean hills. Bread and cheese, some dried fruit, a cup of diluted wine mixed with water. Then they gather close in the lamplight for the close of the day. Perhaps Joseph tells stories, the great stories that every Jewish father is bound to pass on to his children. The story of Abraham leaving everything he knew to follow the voice of God into an unknown land. The story of Moses standing barefoot before the burning bush on the mountain of God. The story of the Exodus, of waters parting and a people set free. The story of David, the shepherd boy from Bethlehem, who became the greatest king of Israel. The children listen, wide-eyed in the lamplight. Jesus, even as a teenager, asked thoughtful and penetrating questions that made Joseph pause and think before he answered. The Gospels never record miracles or dramatic heavenly revelations during these 30 hidden years. Instead, they show us in spare and honest detail a boy and then a young man growing up in the completely ordinary, learning what obedience feels like from the inside, practicing the daily disciplines of kindness and patience and hard work, absorbing the words of the ancient scriptures that will one day flow from his lips before astonished crowds, like water flowing from a living spring. Then comes the Sabbath, and everything in the village changes. The hammering stops, the millstone is silent, the oven is cold. The whole world seems to hold its breath. The family walks together through the narrow streets, Jesus walking beside Joseph, their shoulders almost touching, to the small synagogue built of the same limestone as every other building in the village, its interior cool and dim after the brightness outside. Men and women take their separate places. The Torah scroll is carefully unrolled and the ancient words read aloud in Hebrew, then translated and explained in Aramaic, the everyday language of the people. Jesus sits and hears the words of Isaiah, of Moses, of the Psalms, the very words he himself will later stand up and proclaim as their living fulfillment. After synagogue, the family walks home again, slowly, talking, belonging to each other completely. The Sabbath meal is the finest of the week, a small luxury of extra food, an unhurried pace, the best oil for the lamp. The house itself becomes a sanctuary of rest and peace in a world that never otherwise stops moving. Week after week, year after year, through the changing of the seasons and the turning of the years, this is the rhythm of the carpenter's house in Nazareth. The house is small, the work is hard, the roof leaks when the winter rains come in sideways off the hills of Galilee, and the future is uncertain in ways that would keep a lesser man awake at night. Yet within these stone walls, in this dusty courtyard, beside this smoke-blackened oven, something absolutely extraordinary and world-changing is quietly happening. The eternal Word through whom all things were made and who holds every atom of the universe in existence by the power of his will, is learning what it physically feels like to have blisters rise on his hands from a new tool. The one who one day will speak a single word and calm a storm on the Sea of Galilee is first learning to steady a heavy roof beam against a sudden cold wind off the hills of Galilee. The Savior who will offer living water to a woman at a well in Samaria once drew his own drinking water each morning from a rock-cut cistern in a courtyard in Nazareth. Scholars and theologians remind us gently but firmly that this long, ordinary life was not a delay, not a mistake, not empty time that had to be endured before the real story could begin. It was preparation of the most essential and irreplaceable kind. The 30 hidden years of Jesus in Nazareth were not wasted years. They were the silent and necessary foundation of absolutely everything that followed. When he later looks into the eyes of a tired fisherman and says simply and without explanation, "Follow me," he speaks as a man who has known the tiredness of honest physical labor. When he tells his disciples that the Father knows what they need before they ask, he speaks from the memory of a mother who always somehow found enough bread and oil, even in the lean months. When he calls God Abba, Father, with a tenderness that shocked his contemporaries, the Word carries all the warmth and steadiness of Joseph's patient daily instruction. When he invites the weary and the heavy laden to take his yoke upon them and find rest, he speaks from the memory of yokes he once made with his own hands in a Galilean courtyard, shaped and fitted until they rested perfectly easy. We do not have the precise address of that house today, written in stone above a doorway. The ancient ruins lie quietly and patiently beneath the modern building of the Sisters of Nazareth convent in the city that Nazareth has become. Yet the life that was lived inside those walls still speaks across 2,000 years with a clarity and a warmth that has not faded. It tells us that God is not afraid of small and forgotten places, that He is not embarrassed by humble work or plain food or the close quarters of a modest home. It tells us that the sacred very often hides within the ordinary, behind the sound of a hammer ringing on stone, behind the smell of fresh bread cooling on a flat stone, behind the laughter of children playing a chasing game in a sun-warmed courtyard on a Friday afternoon before the Sabbath begins. So the next time your own days feel small or repetitive or utterly insignificant, remember the carpenter's house in Nazareth and the life that was lived inside it. The Son of God lived there once, in rooms not much different from the rooms you know. He knows firsthand, from lived experience rather than from abstract divine knowledge, what it is to rise before dawn when every bone in your body wants to stay on the mat. He knows what it is to work until your back aches and your hands are rough. He knows what it is to love a family so much that their happiness feels more important than your own. He knows what it is to wait, day after ordinary day, for God's timing, trusting completely that the waiting itself has a purpose and a meaning, even when it cannot yet be seen. In that humble stone house on the limestone hillside of forgotten Nazareth, the greatest story ever told was quietly and patiently and beautifully taking shape, one completely ordinary day at a time. If this journey into the house where Jesus grew up has moved you or given you something new to carry with you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe for more cinematic explorations of the biblical world. Leave a comment below. We would genuinely love to know what surprised you most about the daily life of the carpenter's son. We read every single comment, and we look forward deeply to walking with you through the next chapter of Scripture. Until then, may the humility and the faithfulness and the quiet, extraordinary grace of that Nazareth home inspire and strengthen your own.